Hello everyone, my name is Vasily Sachnev. I am professor from Department of Information Communications and Electronics Engineering. And during this semester I am going to teach an application programming class. So our class will include two different parts. So during the next few weeks we are going to study Java programming. So later in April, when we will finally meet each other, so we will start study our main objective of the class, which is the iOS programming. So just because of that division, so we will have to handle our class in the two different ways. So during the next few weeks, all class materials will be presented online, in a similar manner what am I doing now. And later, we will handle our classes in the specific Mac laboratory, where we will have to study iOS programming. Okay, the first what we will need to do is to understand what exactly we will study during the lectures. Okay, so the first, let's discuss the structure of the today talk. So the first what we will discuss is the class subject. So as I said, the class is divided into the two parts, so that's why let's discuss those particular parts in details. So the next will be the class structure, so we will need to discuss how exactly we are going to plan our lectures, especially during the first few weeks where all materials will be presented online. So after that we will discuss some class details where we will have to handle the programming tools, materials, source code, and also discuss a different problem and the tasks what is related to our applications. And in the final stage, we will also discuss details about the exams and evaluation. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the class subject for the first few weeks for the part 1, Java programming. So for the Java programming, we will first need to go through the specific introduction where we are going to discuss kind of some specific topics related to what is Java, how does the Java has been created, what is the usage of the Java like in the beginning, and how did it change from the past until now, and that kind of knowledge will give us the good understanding how does the Java change and how did it affect the general programming language. So that will be done in the first introductory discussion about the Java programming. So the next what we are going to discuss here is the basic knowledge of the Java. So Java is pretty interesting topic, which is covering like many different aspects of the modern programming, as long as developing different specified applications. We will discuss how does the Java was developed in the beginning, and how does the Java changed and has been implemented in many different aspects of the modern life nowadays. So that will be done through the basic knowledge of Java. Also we will have to discuss about the different developers tools such as Eclipse, what we are going to use in our class for general Java programming. So during the class, we will mainly focus on developing different applications. So definitely in the beginning we will start from the simplest and useful console applications, so which will give us the general basic understanding of how to create modern applications. So that will be our basic simple console applications, what we are going to try in the beginning. So later, we will start discussing the desktop application. So those desktop application will be our main target for first part, Java programming. So, and like there are a few reasons why we will mostly focus on the desktop application. So the main reason why, because most of the application what we are currently using in the computers, our personal computers, and in our mobile devices, they are all belong to the set of the desktop applications. So what we will definitely need to study. After that, we will also discuss about the different Android applications and web applications. So for those 4 different general sets of applications, we usually use Java, and that is our main topic to discuss. What is that? Part 2, iOS programming. So for the iOS programming, we will go through the introduction. So we will start discussing what is in general programming for the different mobile platforms. So right here, where is the principal difference compared to what we had discussed before for the general Java programming. So, and the main difference is that for the Java programming for desktop application, we are creating the source code in our desktop computer, and the same desktop computer we are using to compile and run that particular application. When we are talking about the mobile platform, we cannot do that. So we are creating our source code in our desktop, but later that particular source code will be executed in the separate devices. That can be either iPhone or iPad if we are talking about the iOS programming, or that can be any kind of Android device if we are talking about the general Android programming. So this is the difference. So for the iOS programming, so we are mainly using 2 different languages, programming languages, Swift or the Objective-C. During this class, we are going to stop and focus on the Swift language for general iOS programming. So in order to design applications for iOS, we will have to use Mac devices. That is either iMac or MacBook. So in that computers, we will use a specific software that's called Xcode, so which must be installed on our iMac or MacBook. So, and only on that software we can design our own Apple applications. So in the Catholic University we do have Mac laboratory, which contains 17 iMac computers, and we are going to use those computers for our iOS programming. Later on, at the time when we will finally meet in April. So up to that moment, again, we will try the Java programming. So, and as a result, we will practice with the few different iOS applications. So we will start with the very simple application with the very trivial design without complex coding. So later on, we will go for some more complex application with the complex design. So that will need more effort from us to design such particular application. So the next will be the logical game, where the design part will not be too much significant, but the programming part will be pretty much important and more complex compared to what we had in the beginning. And at the end, we will finish with the graphical applications. For the graphical applications, we will try to design some different parts of our coding, of different graphical object in the screen of our devices. Okay, so that will be the overview of the iOS programming for our. Few words about different Java programming application. So the easiest and the most simplest application what we can create using Java is the console application. So here there is an example of that particular console application. So the main source code looks very simple, so which is written right here. And at the time when we want to execute this console application, instead of running quite complex stuff which request a lot of computer resources, we just display very trivial and simple information in that particular like black window, where the all necessary where the result of our application will be presented. So such kind of console application, as I mentioned, this is the most simplest and easiest way to handle and interact with the different source coding. So in case of the Java programming, so here we can design some certain source code, and after that launch it easily using the specific console where we can launch our console application. So we will try like few console applications. So after that we will go for the little bit more complex case, which is the desktop application. Okay, so the next one is the desktop. What is the desktop? Okay, so this is the desktop application. So the Java programming gave us a specific necessary instrument to create that particular window where we can include different components, and those components will be giving us some kind of extra functionality. This is nothing else as the desktop application. What is the difference compared to the previous case? So in case of the desktop application, so we are using the power of Windows more extensively, and we create a specific form which call window. If we are talking about the Windows, like the general Windows operation system. So, and inside there is our application activities. So here we can see our like application name. So inside of that particular Windows form, so we will have and see different word components. We can see different graphical information. So here can be the different text field where we will include our text information. So, and right here we can see the final table with the different like scrolling facilities. All of those components are possible to code using the general Java programming for desktop application. So for the next few weeks, that will be our main concern. So we will try to create the different desktop application using the Eclipse tools. So our general software for the Java programming is the Eclipse. So, and we are going to create that particular application using Eclipse software. So this is the Java programming to create the desktop application. But the Java is also famous by creating some other extra set of applications. So the next one, which is extremely popular nowadays, this is the Java programming for Android application. So if you do have Android smartphone, so all applications what you are using every day, they are creating, mostly created by Android Studio using Java programming language, designed specifically for Android programming. And this is example of how does it looks like. So here is some Android mobile device. So and inside we can see some application. So and that particular applications we can create in specific Android Studio using the Java language. So right here is an example of that particular coding source. So by using Java, we can create application for Android. This is another significant usage of the Java language in the modern world. Right here, so we already discovered like 3 different usage of the Java language. And there is one more, which is called web applications. So where we can use the Java language in order to create simple and not web application, which can be executed using the different browsers. So nowadays, this is another extremely important area of use for Java programming. So by using the Java language, we can create the different web application. So most of the modern websites, which contains a lot of animated information, most probably created by Java programming through what we already mentioned, so we can design web application as well. During our classes, we are not going to discuss in detail about the web application, so I am just naming here. So we can use web application here as an example to use different Java programs. Yeah, that's okay. So for the iOS programming, we are going to use Mac laboratory, which is located in the D340 room. So that room has 17 iMac computers. So those computers, they are good enough in order to program and execute different iOS application, so which we will do at the time when we will finally meet in April. So those particular machine we will use in order to design our own application. So those machine already have all necessary software. So here we are using Xcode in order to create our application, and in order to launch that particular application, so we are using iPhone emulator. So right here in those devices, so at the time when we create our code in the Xcode software, so we need to launch it. So the problem is that if you don't have iPhone in your hands, that will be impossible to launch without the direct connection. So instead of using your own device, we can try to emulate iPhone in the machine. So that's why inside of our Mac computer, so we will create that particular iPhone emulator, and the source code, what we will design using the Xcode, we can run in that particular emulator. So that's why the use of the Mac laboratory will give us the all necessary instrument in order to practice in iOS programming. So we can create the source code, and we also can run it in the emulator or in our own like Mac device, iOS device. It is either iPhone or iPad. Okay, so for our class, we will also need to have, that's better to have, like iPhone or iPad. We can also use the quite old devices, and those devices will be possible to connect to our computers and execute a different iOS application there. So that's what we are going to do in the class. So instead, if you don't have the iPhone or iPad, so we can use iPhone emulator, what was just displayed in the previous slide. So right here in our computer memory, so we will design a device like which is emulator of iPhone. So, and the software created by Xcode we can finally launch in our emulator. So, and that will be good enough in order to process and code everything we need for our class. But once again, that will happen in April when we will start study the iOS programming. Okay, so our class structure. So altogether will be 16 study weeks, what we are going to finish during this semester. So those lectures will contain some very short lectures with the presentation material. So during that short lecture, so I will discuss and explain you the necessary problems, necessary programming tools, what we are going to discuss in that particular moment. Okay, once that is finished, so we can go into the practice part. In the practice part, we are going to implement that stuff what we just discussed during the short lectures during the class. So that's why we need a computer room for that set of classes. So once the practice is done, so we can go to the next part, which is the video lectures. As long as we are talking about the programming, sometimes it is not always possible to process and hold the class material on time when you are sitting in front of the computers trying to do something. So if some ideas, some materials will be missing, that may cause a different problems later. So that's why during the classwork I will also introduce the set of video lectures where I am going to discuss how to design different application, how to create the different source code to solve the different problems. So here there is an example of that particular video lecture where we are trying to create very first Java application. So, and during our classes we will have many such kind of video lectures where I am going to discuss different solutions online. So later when we will cover that particular topic during the class, once again, if some material will not be clear in the beginning, you can always come back to the video lecture and get that particular information from the lecture. So such kind of video lecturing is very helpful in terms of studying such complicated subject as the Java programming and iOS programming. So that's why I always use that particular strategy for teaching the programming classes. So that's why the online video lectures will be always available for that particular classes, for iOS programming as well as for the Java programming. So also for the class structure, so we will need to discuss the midterm and final term. So there are two exams, midterm and final term, in our class. You will also have a few assignments to fix at home, and also we will have the classworks. So this is the application what we will have to finish at class. So during the class we will practicing in making the different applications. So the modified version of those applications will be your homework, what you will need to fix by yourself at home. So that's what you will need to process later. Class details. So during the class we are going to use two programming tools. So we will use Eclipse for Java programming, Xcode for iOS programming. So during the first few weeks, so we are going to use Eclipse. That will be our main programming tools, what we are going to use in our class. So also online. Eclipse is the completely free software what you can easily get from internet. So it is pretty easy to install and pretty easy to use. So the later I will explain how to install Eclipse, how to use it in order to create our first Java application. So Xcode is a little bit more complex. So first of all, it is designed for Mac computer, so that's why we need Mac device in order to install Xcode. So that's why we are using iMac in the Mac laboratory, because we can install and use Xcode on those computers. So also for the Xcode, we will create and use iPhone emulator on the computer. So that again will give us all necessary tools to process the iOS programming. So this is the programming tools. Now the class materials. Most of the class materials what we will use in this semester, it is the online services. This is the web resources. So that will be either my own source code, my video lectures, or that will be the link to somebody else products. So what we are going to use in our class. So I will also upload the presentation, like same as this particular PPT, into our online source, our school online source eCyber. All of those materials will be available there. Okay, and here there is like the third component, books. So during our class we are not going to use books often. So, and there are a few reasons why. So first of all, there are not many good books related to the modern programming. Why? See, if we are talking about the general mobile platform programming, so the way how does the mobile platforms change from year to year give us very complicated way to design a specific study material. Why it is going on this way? See, every time when we getting a new Android or new iOS, so those particular operation system experience some modification. So, and at the time when we will start study how to handle that particular operation system, any new next version of that operation system may be different from what we currently study. So that's why if we want to handle our material through a good book, so that particular book will be written for the old version of the iOS, which may not be always correct at the time when we will start studying. In addition, so even for this particular class, so even if we are going to use the latest possible material for the iOS programming, so the next year when we will come back to that particular subject, so the material may be slightly different. So this is the main reason why I am not going to use book often for that particular class. So we will mostly focus on the online materials, which is more suitable for that subject where the data is changing too fast. So, and this is the main reason why we will be know many books, like many materials from the books in the class. Okay, now the source code. Source code will be available online in the eCyber. So here there is an example of that particular form. So everything what we will create during the class, I will save in the specific like items in the eCyber. You can always upload that particular source code by yourself. So it means that if you will not be able to finish for some reason the application during the class, you can always get that particular material later from eCyber. That will give you an extra kind of study material later when you will need to design your home assignment. Okay, so the problem and tasks, what we are going to discuss during the semester will be the different applications to design using Java and iOS, like Xcode and Eclipse. So those applications you have to create by yourself at home together class. And the last part will be better to discuss here, that is the exam and evaluation. So there are two exams to final. Each exam will contains 4 problems, technically 4 applications, what you need to solve in order to get some points. So that particular exams is like the completely open book. Open source means that all materials what you will create during this is available during the exam, so you can easily use them. Okay, so things we can discuss. So and evaluation is pretty general. So 6% is the home assignment, 6% is the midterm, and final term. Percent attendance. So it will be the final evaluation what you can get from our class. Okay, that's all for today. Good luck. Next time.